Here's another one that drives me batty sometimes. Maybe you too, but let's talk about it. Romans 13. Do Christians have to obey the government? There's a lot of people that think that our POTUS is anointed by God to bring this mighty restoration, and they use Romans 13 to try to justify that saying. Is that, my friends, what Paul was talking about in Romans? Stay tuned, because we're going to dive in quickly and swim around a little bit, see what the scriptures are really saying. So Romans 13, it might be one of the most misunderstood chapters, passages in the Bible. Paul says, submit to government authorities. They are established by God. So what does that mean? Again, this is a surface teaching, so bear with me. Does that mean every government is God's will? Does that mean we always obey no matter what? Because if that's true, then was the Emperor Nero right to burn Christians alive? I mean, he's the authority. We should support him, right? Let's slow down a little bit and read this the right way. What Paul is not saying rulers are always good. The same Roman Empire he's talking about a few years earlier had crucified Jesus. And later, they're going to cut Paul's head off. We know what happens to these disciples. So Paul is not naive here. He is not saying governments are always just and leaders represent God and Christians should just blindly obey. He's not saying that. This idea has been used throughout history to justify evil, even as it is now with these wars. What about in Nazi Germany? They used Romans 13 to control the church. They were a Christian nation. So we have to be careful here. So what is Paul saying? Paul is saying something much more practical. We just got to be practical here. Christians are not called to overthrow empire with violence. We're just not called for that. He that lives by the sword, die by the sword. We're not in the business of taking up the sword. Instead, we are called to live peaceably. Live peacefully when you can. Paul is giving these guys, follow the laws that you can, pay your taxes, show honor where possible. Remember, these Jews have been kicked out of Rome, and then they just got allowed to come back. So Paul is almost saying keep a low profile. Why? Because we are a different kind of kingdom. We don't fight like the world fights. So what about when the state is wrong? This is where many people get confused, because the Bible is full of civil disobedience. Remember all the way back in Egypt, the Hebrew midwives, they disobeyed Pharaoh. Pharaoh told them all the boy childs drown them. Remember Daniel, when they played the national anthem, he refused to bow. The apostles say we must obey God rather than men. So yes, there are times when we must say no to empire. But here's the key. We resist without becoming like it. No violence, no revenge, no hatred. You go back from Romans 13 a chapter, go back to Romans 12. It changes everything. Right before, the great obey blindly, whatever they say, Romans 12 says, don't repay evil for evil. He says, love your enemies. Overcome evil with good. That's the context that Paul is going to be writing here in chapter 13. Paul is not building a theology of power, pax romana, peace through strength. He's describing a people who live differently inside of power structures, empire. Paul is telling them, you guys know this already. The empire bears the sword. That's what governments do. Cross them, you'll pay the price. But the church, We don't carry the sword like they do. Jesus never told his followers to rule through force. I know in America, 2A, we got all that and we want it and we want to, protection and all that. What did he tell us? He told us to love. He told us to forgive. He told us to lay our lives down. And I know we don't like that part, or maybe we'll lay it down for somebody who looks like us, sounds like us, same color as us. But my friends, we are not empire. We are called to be the alternative to empire. So Romans 13 is not about blind obedience. It's about faithful presence. Live in the world. We have to. Jesus, John 17, I can't take you out of the world. Honor where you can. Resist where you must, but always, and I mean always, look like Jesus.